So I'm really, really pleased to have Sandhya Dave with us. And Sandhya is a second generation British Indian offering teaching in subjects related to India, Hinduism, citizenship, racism, and diversity.
Welcome, everybody. And yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
I'm going to ask a broad question firstly around nature that can you remember a first experience that you had in nature where you really felt connected and you realized that there was something bigger than you that was going on in the world?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. I have many of those actually. And, I grew up in London, right? So, but we had this park and there was like the manicured park, with the benches and the tennis court and all of that. But then you went through all of that and you started to get into the wild side. And to go to the wild side, there was a canal and there were these big stepping stones. And I think it wasn't until I was 7 years old that, I always had to have my hand held and to go over these stepping stones because I was always scared and I wasn't quite big enough and, all of that kind of stuff that happens that's like, I know I can't do it. And then felt like one day I was ready. I was ready to go over and I stepped over the stones myself. And then what was beautiful about this space in the middle of West London was that there were like apple trees and pear trees and plum trees and blackberries and it was just left to do its own thing. And I just used to love it there. I don't know what it was. I just used to feel free and love it there. And that's probably my early memory. And I guess it's a great question actually, Cass, because I haven't really put it together. And here we go. But, I guess what I was recognizing, and I'm just recognizing now, is it was a place of nourishment for me to go and be there and get away from what was life, daily life, which wasn't always easy when I was growing up. So it was a real place of, disappearing, escaping and nourishment. And I guess, what also I'm struck by is the need, and I'm sure, you at Right to Freedom are very aware of this, this space where we need to initiate ourselves, no matter how old we are. We have, so for example, as a woman, I have a natural initiation where, when I started bleeding, when I became a mother and now I've stopped bleeding. So I have those natural cycles of initiation. But we also, for me, that was a significant point where, I suddenly didn't have someone else to hold my hand. I didn't need it anymore. And I guess when we're thinking about recovery, that's also really necessary. There are marking points of like, how do I make that jump over to recovery? And I guess the question for me would also arise is, what do I need? What do I need when I'm recovering? What do I need for me to be able to climb the tree up there like you? What would I need? What support would I need?
I think there's something about talking therapy which is, I think, really useful to begin with and to kind of get a bit of grounding and a bit of understanding. But then there's a point where we have to go into our bodies more. And I heard this wonderful description about the somatic approach to trauma, of the idea that when we were kids, something really terrible happens and our fight or flight puts the foot on the imaginary accelerator to run to get out of wherever we are, which is usually our home. That certainly was the case for me. But then because we're in our home, we're like, well, I can't go because this is my home. So the foot goes on the brake and on the accelerator at the same time. And that's when the trauma gets locked in. And that's what we end up having to deal with.
And, again, it's bringing it back to some forms of, any kind of forms of addiction. We know that research is telling us that probably nearly half of people who have some form of addiction have some sort of trauma in their system. And again, trauma is something that's really being spoken about. And, what I'm interested in and what, I guess, another word for me is efficiency, right? So if somebody, with Devon rape crisis, I only have 24 sessions with people, which is actually quite a lot for an organisation to offer an individual. And I'm like, I need to get them moving. That's what they've come for. They've expressed they want to do this, they want to do this, they want to be here, they want to, be able to go out and get a job or whatever it is that, and so when we talking about, I think is absolutely useful. But I guess what's not necessary for me, what I've learned through my experience as a practitioner, is that we don't have to identify everything. which is very different to talking about. We don't have to, because I'm angry right now, I don't necessarily have to identify why I'm feeling angry. I can just be with my anger and then move it. And for me, what the body practice offers is movement. And, coming in from the shiatsu kind of Chinese energetic perspective, movement is the key. Movement is the key to life. Otherwise, we have stagnation. We have stagnation, which is what we would term as, very loosely, these are kind of crude concepts, but it's kind of like stuck, it's trauma stuck in the body. It's energy that is trapped and stuck. So how do we enable it? How do we invite it, right? Like everything, how do we invite it, talk to it, encourage it, know it, to then express itself?
In the path that you've chosen for your life, in what you give and the gifts that you bring to the world, do you feel that you chose the path, or did the path choose you?
Oh, there's so many ways of answering that question. It's a great question. I love being called a polymath. That's really cool. I just thought I was a crazy kid. I think there are levels of how I can answer that question. On a kind of what I call earth level, I would answer that question that my traumatic childhood experiences have led me to do what I do, right? So that's kind of this earthly life. But because I have explored birth work too, I have memories of before I was born. And I can't explain that, and I don't feel like I need to anyone. But in that, I have a very clear knowing that I chose to come in to do some work. The interesting about that is sometimes I sit back from it and kind of go, okay, so if I didn't have those childhood experiences, would I still be doing this? Or, what else would I be doing? Right? What else would I be doing? And for me, that's a more interesting question, if you like, because it asks me about, where is it that I might be limiting myself? Or where is it that I'm staying safe because I can be a practitioner, because I know all this, la, 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 so it's just interesting, yeah.
Or we walk on the land together, or we sit and we talk. And these are all really ancient things. It's again, remembering these things, because it's so easy to get caught up in our tech, in our world, in our modern lives.
And I think, that's so beautiful, because for me, it's okay to simplify, right? I can read. I can read and read and read. And it's funny, like, again, in my meeting this morning, the person I was talking to kind of alluded to a book. And for a moment, I went into that space of like, oh, God, I should know this book and what they said, And then I was like, actually, no, because I have enough lived experience. And for me, the words that come are knowing and being. That's kind of what we're talking about. And that intelligence is accessible to all of us.
Yeah.
It's accessible to all of us, and you don't need to read hundreds of books. You don't need to go on hundreds of retreats. You just need to go and sit by a tree, by the river. So I'm going to read a poem by, really famous poet Rumi, because I love him. And it's called Asleep and Listening. Day before yesterday, fire whispered to the fragrant smoke. Aloes wood loves me, because I know how to untie it and let it loose. This burning must occur, or nothing will happen. Sperm cell disappears into egg. Then a new beauty appears. Bread and broth must dissolve in the stomach before energy comes. Raw ore gets refined into coins. It is necessary for you to experience non-being. Love takes you towards that. Asleep beside the splashing water, let it say secrets into you. Be asleep and a pure listening at the same time.